Hello, you are listening to the Blue Monday podcast. This is a 3 times weekly audio show looking into the exciting happenings of Ipswich Town Football Club. My name is Benjamin Bloom and I'll be here each and every Friday for the Blue Monday preview show with a special guest to get their insider view on the next opponents for Ipswich Town. And this is going to be a very interesting one today, listeners, because we're going right the way across the pond. Ladies and gentlemen, please pray silence for Russ Goldman from the mighty Cottage Talk podcast. Where the hell are you, Russ?
I'm on the coast of Maine in a town called the Gunquit, and it's
that?
beautiful here. Yes, Ogunquit. It's actually beautiful here. It's about 2 hours from where I live. It's right on the corner of New Hampshire, Maine, and Massachusetts. It's actually really nice.
And
but
what percentage of our listeners do you think have ever been there?
Yours probably maybe 1%.
How is it? And thank you for coming on while you're on holiday.
Oh, it's gorgeous here. The hotel I'm staying on is basically overlooking the ocean. And it really is a gorgeous location, and I'm just here with my family, but I wanted to make sure I could do this podcast with you.
Well, that's very, very good of you, and I'm sure our listeners are going to appreciate it greatly. Can you tell me a bit about College Talk? College Talk, for God's sake. Yes, you can tell I'm talking to an American, can't you? College Talk. Tell me a bit about Cottage Talk, and which one of your contributors is it who always takes the mick out of Mick McCarthy as well?
That would be Giannis. Giannis actually does that on a regular basis. He does a very good Mick McCarthy.
He does, yeah.
We joke about it all the time. Almost every show he comes on, he wants to do his impression of Mick, which is so much fun. Giannis is a very personable guy. He's actually up in Canada, in Toronto, but he's originally from England. And he's the one that usually does it. And what's great about Cottage Talk is it's funny, just starting my 7th season of doing it.
Wow.
Tomorrow is the 6th-year anniversary of Cottage Talk. It's amazing to see how long we've been doing this.
And where can people find you? Because you'll be doing quite a bit on Ipswich this weekend, won't you?
Well, you can find it obviously on Apple Podcasts. You can find it there. You can find it on blogtalkradio.com. You can find it on Stitcher, the TuneIn app. It's basically everywhere. I promote it on cottagesconfidential.sbnation.com. It's there as well. So there are plenty of places to listen to the show.
Okay, so before we talk about Saturday's game, let's go back and look at the form from last season. So I'm going to Boxing Day 2016, a 2-0 victory for Fulham at Portman Road. Fulham dominated it and won pretty easily, but interestingly, it was 2 set-piece goals that actually won it for them. Martin with a direct free kick and Sigurdsson heading in for a corner. I also remember some spectacular missing from Floyd Aite that day. What are your reactions on that time of the season and that performance against Ipswich?
That performance was pivotal to our season. That I won't say it was the moment that everything changed. I think it would be the moment where I realized that we were on to a special season that could potentially end in the top 6. Because to go on the road to Portman Road, and get that done is amazing. And that just showed how far that we came, because we knew that we'd be playing against a team that would make it difficult for us to play. We still played our stuff, and we found a way to win, like you said, on set pieces, which is not the way that we usually get it done. And that was a pivotal moment in the season where I really felt that the season was going to be a good one for Fulham. So, unfortunately, it wasn't the result you guys wanted, but for us, it really just showed how far we have come. And it's funny you mentioned about Aite. We learned a little bit about Aite. Aite can be spectacular, but can be inconsistent when it comes to scoring. Unfortunately, I'm looking, as we're doing this, to tweets from the team on the presser, and Aite won't be available for the match.
Oh,
and
interesting. Okay.
And apparently Sonny Aluko has a hip problem. They're going to assess him to see if he can play. I'm actually reading from tweets from Jokanovic as we speak. But that's just to give you a little inside info while we do this podcast. But yeah, no, listen, it was a pivotal game for Fulham. Just to really tell the fans where we were, to go in a difficult place to win is amazing.
And was that the point where the formation got set with the three guys swarming in the midfield and the three forwards? Had he been working towards that, and that was the first time it clicked, or had that been coming?
That had been coming. That I would say it had clicked prior to that, but it really was, on display then. That's when we really saw how everything could work, because Fulham are really about the midfield three. If the midfield three are working together, everything flows from that point on, and that's when they really got it together. It's funny, Ben, I was listening to one of your episodes, and you were throwing out this theory about passing teams.
Yes. Do you agree?
And honestly, I'm starting to agree with you, because you brought up examples of three teams that are struggling right now, and it might have to do with getting the passing game and teams being worn down over the course of the season to it really taking effect. It seems like it's twofold.
Yeah,
the passing has to be going.
You've just said that far more articulately than I did. I was trying to get my head around this, and my theory was that Fulham, Brentford and Reading will start to get an advantage as you go into winter, and the teams like, if you look, Ipswich and Cardiff right at the top of the league, I can't believe I'm saying that, who are up and at them and pressing and direct, their advantage is greatest in August when players are freshest and fittest, and you might see these teams come through. And I'm just trying to justify the league table at the moment, but I'm glad someone kind of agrees.
No, listen, I actually agree with you, because I was on a walk here in Maine, and I'm listening to that episode, and you're talking about this with Dave, and I'm thinking, I think Ben nailed this, because I was thinking about the three teams, and then I was thinking about last season where we struggled in September, and until they got the midfield three solidified, well, it was difficult. That was a difficult month for us, and then I'm thinking, okay, I think Ben Bloom's on to something, because you're talking about the three teams, and I went back and I watched the highlights of the match, the Ipswich Town match with Brentford. And I looked at the statistics, and I said, "What? How did this happen?"
Yeah, it was 65% possession, Brentford, 530 passes to 350. But it was, we're hoping the exact same pattern on Saturday, but we will get to that.
Sure.
Now, let's go to April the 8th. I'm trying to work out which... I mean, this was a bit more of a routine victory for you guys. It was the double for Fulham. Aite does get on the score sheet this time. My memory of the first half was that we were all set up for your lovely three centre midfielders, and your fullbacks were brilliant. Fredericks got the assist for the first, and really gave us a hard time down our left. And Malone obviously scored the second one. I think Fulham did a clever job in the second half of sitting back 10 yards further than they had in the first, and then just picked us off for the third goal. We got a consolation right at the end, and what I do remember about that game as well is the front few rows of the Ipswich crowd really turned on McCarthy in that game. But from a Fulham point of view, this is in. I've got a stat here. You closed out the season with 5 wins and a draw, so this is probably in your best spot of the season, this second game last year. Do you agree?
I totally agree. This is when we were really at our height, and unfortunately you came in during that period of time, and that's when everything was really set at that point. We're talking about the first time the teams play. That's when I saw, as I guess you could say, a focal point, a turning point of the season where I felt, okay, this is going in that direction. When the match happened at Craven Cottage, that's when we were really at the middle of where we became who we were that season.
Great stuff. So this Fulham team that, I mean, when you're when you're an opposition fan, you only really judge the team on the 2 games they play against your team, don't you? You don't.
Sure.
I don't spend the whole time watching Fulham. So most Ipswich fans would probably say one of the, if not the best team we came up against on the 2 days we came. They really, really outplayed us both. You came a cropper in the playoffs against Reading 2-1 on aggregate, and believe me, every Ipswich fan listening to this knows about coming a cropper in the playoffs. What went wrong there? Because you would say you would match up quite well against Reading, because I would say if Fulham sometimes overplay slightly, then Reading are even more guilty of it, aren't they?
It's interesting when I look back at these 2 matches and I look back at what Jaap Stam did. See, teams have, I wouldn't say they have now a blueprint of how to play against us, but there are ways to frustrate Fulham, and Stam did that, especially in the first leg. He pressed us. And what that ends up doing is that we want to play the ball out from the back. And Marcus Bettinelli would normally have, I guess you could say, not free reign, but the availability of the fullbacks and the center backs to start the process of moving forward. Reading wouldn't allow us to do that. So that kind of frustrates us a little bit. And I think that started happening throughout the match, where I wouldn't say it got in their heads, but it just showed that this is going to be a match that was going to be nip and tuck throughout the whole thing. And for Fulham, in a match like this, it's being clinical. And this has been our downfall this season and last season, is can we be clinical enough? And going back to Aluko, we've all been talking about this. If Aluko scores in the first half, Fulham not only take the lead going into the second leg, but probably move on to the playoff final. It's those slim margins, those differences, those small differences between going to the next level and staying where you are and being knocked out, like Fulham were, that just change everything. Listen, Fulham played this really tight, beautiful brand of football, but if you can get it, and if you can disrupt it, Ben, the problem Fulham have right now is, what is the plan B? Because he only has one way to play. I'm talking about Jokanovic. Right now, there isn't a plan B, and I think that can be an issue for us. And I think that, and again, we had Matt Smith, and then they let Matt Smith go to QPR. That was really the plan B. But he wants to play a certain way. It's attacking football. It's pretty football. One of my co-hosts said that basically Fulham want to score the perfect goal, Ben, instead of just scoring a goal, from wherever. And that can come back to bite you. You're working so hard with all the passing that you want it to be perfect. And I've been screaming, just shoot. Just shoot from distance. And that, I think, has been a problem with them, is that instead of, taking shots when they're available, you're trying to get a better opportunity where maybe you just need to shoot. And, and that to me, and again, the second leg, if we had what we have now here in America, VAR, I think that would have been reversed the situation with Jan Kermorgant and Tomas Kalas, and they got a penalty.
It's coming, Russ. It's working well in Holland. It's coming. It'll go to the Premier League in the next 5 years, and then the Championship in the next 5 years.
I think you're right.
We had the buzzer go off to give a goal at Portman Road on Saturday, which was terribly exciting for us people from Suffolk who've never seen never seen the like of it before. Yeah, well, I was sat in the stand, and I'm like, oh, good clearance. And, 2 seconds later, Garner's running off and he scored. I must just come back, because you've basically just described how Ipswich used to play under Burley in the playoffs in the late 90s, where you have this lovely system that over a 46-game season works really well, and it will get you 1.8 to 1.9 points per game over 46. And every now and then, someone will come up and they'll beat you, but in a whole season, it's fine. And then you get into this kind of what I call tournament football, like playoff football, and you do need You do need that extra something. In our case, when we got up through the playoffs, we just had this incredible. It was 2-2 and then 5-3 and then 4-2 in the final, and we were behind about. We just got this incredible kind of run sort of happen. This 3 games where it was just like the football gods said, no, you're getting promoted this season. Don't worry, just attack and you're going to win. But is there any part of you that kind of went, well, okay, this may not be so bad. We probably would have got demolished in the Premier League and, you know, I don't know, say Kearney stars in the final. He's more likely to be sold or what have you. Is there any part of you that thinks, no, it's okay, develop under the manager, a couple more years and then hit the Premier League?
Well, I thought that this is going to be the season, even getting into the playoff. I thought this is the season to put it all together. The team is pretty much intact. Besides, like you mentioned before, Martin and Malone, this is the team from last season, and then we've added pieces to that. And I thought as long as you added the right pieces to the puzzle, this could be the season for automatic promotion. Obviously, the start is not what we want, but I wasn't, and again, I was disappointed. I thought that, do what you can to get back to the Premier League, but at that point, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking it's okay, because this will be the season. And here we are right now. And as you can imagine, Fulham supporters are a little worried because it started off poorly. But if you really look at it, if you look at the opponents and look what's going on, and then you go to your theory of 10 games in with the passing style, it's just a matter of time for it to all to click. Will it click?
And the drop-off of the intense teams. Hopefully not.
Sure.
Most of the league are expecting Ipswich and Cardiff and QPR to all regress at least 5 places, aren't they? So you might have segued us quite well. I just wanted to talk about the business. So
yep.
I'm going to fire a load of names at you, and if you can summarise. So in on permanence, Camara, Fonte, Cisse, Jarlo. Also on loan, Suarez, Callas, Ojo, Norwood. New contracts for Sessegnon and Kearney. And I'd like you to talk about Sessegnon because your podcast told me he was staying, and now I'm hearing very heavy rumours that that's not happening. Out, Malone, Sanchez, Christensen, Stearman, Burgess. Look, I've fired a whole load of names. Can you kind of summarise as best you can? Has he strengthened it? Does it look better? What's going to happen to Sessegnon and Kearney?
Okay. Why don't I start with Sessegnon and Kearney? I'll start with Kearney. The best piece of business Fulham did this summer was re-signing Tom Kearney. Because without him, basically everything goes through him. The team is built around Tom Kearney. So if he was going to leave, I think it would have been a massive blow to Fulham. Beyond Sessegnon, beyond anyone else, it was Tom Kearney. So regardless of all the signings I'm going to mention moving forward, the best signing, I think, in the championship was re-signing of Tom Kearney. That's how important he is to Fulham.
Not Joe Garner. Sorry, go on, Russ. Go on.
That's okay. In regards to the Sessegnon situation, Sessegnon did sign a 3-year contract. Obviously, there are the big boys that are interested in him, Manchester United, Tottenham Hotspur, hot for him. We've heard all kinds of things with this situation with Sessegnon. I don't know if you heard anything today. The only things I keep hearing are Manchester United and Tottenham Hotspur. The situation that I think with the Sessegnon thing right now is that if they were to sell him right now, I think it would be a major mistake because of the timing of the window. If you're going to sell him now, I think that eventually he will leave. But if I'm Fulham, I do whatever I can to hold on to him for this season. And I think it's best for him for his development as a player. He's not the finished article. He isn't. He's going to be an incredible player, but I think he would benefit the most from staying at Fulham. If they were to sell him, the only way I would do it if I was ownership was to get a loan back, and then you do it. But even in that case, you still don't have enough time, I think, to properly use the money.
No.
And that's the rub here. But we'll have to see what happens with Sessegnon, again, I keep hearing things, and I like to think that he's going to stay, but until that window shuts, you never know. And if I'm Fulham, if there's a deal on the table and they feel that they have to do it sooner than later. Give yourself a chance to bring in players. But I generally hope that they don't, and I generally hope that he stays at Fulham for this upcoming season, and then we'll address it. I don't even want to address it in January. I want to address it next summer. But it's a difficult one because he's that talented.
And what about the permanence in? Is there a goal scorer in there, Cameron Fonte?
Well, if I'm being completely honest with you, the player that you should be concerned about because you don't know a lot about him is Rui Font.
Yeah.
Rui Font, in a very short period of time, we're talking one match, showed me more than I would say Hugo Rodiega in the past, some other strikers that we've had.
Who was that Greek one that cost an absolute fortune?
Oh, Kostas Mitroglou.
Wow.
Yeah.
There was a French Steve Marley as well.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah.
Boy, you're going back with Marley, but listen, there've been some clunkers. The thing with Font that I've seen, and again, I'm talking one match. He just looks like he is a proper striker that can be dangerous, that can set up his teammates. We saw that in the one match against Sheffield Wednesday, and also is not afraid to shoot. So when you have that combination, it's different than what we've had. Chris Martin was a different type. He was a he was a hold-up type of striker. He was a target man that could actually still be stylish. Font has more pace, I believe, than Martin, and has more skill than Martin. So I think he's going to score a good amount of goals and set up a lot of teammates this season. Camera is more of the work in progress. I think he's going to come through. There are fans that are doubting him right now because he hasn't scored yet, and he just looks like he just isn't ready for the league that he's in yet. He just needs time. It's about experience, more about experience with him. Font looks like he could walk right in and start scoring goals. And I expect to see him play at Portman Road. I definitely expect to see that because of what I've already seen from him. And
and the paucity, it sounds like if Aite we'll come on to this, Aite and Aluko aren't around, he's pretty certain to be there on Saturday, isn't he?
Yes. Listen, Savisa might play both of them together. We're talking about Camera and also Font, but I would definitely expect to see Font, and I really like what I've seen in a short spell so far with Fulham. We're talking one match, but when you look at someone and you just know this is a player that I just know that he fits to what they want to do, and he looks like he's going to score. It's just a matter of time.
And on the loans, Callas we know is a good player. The one I didn't totally understand is where would Norwood fit in, given that your centre midfield three is so good?
It's a great question, and here's the answer, and it's an issue that Fulham are dealing with. The problem with the midfield three, they're so excellent together. They mesh so well. It really is a well-oiled machine when the three are playing well. But they played so many minutes and matches last season that there can be that wear and tear. And unfortunately for Fulham right now, Tom Kearney is not 100%. And I saw one fan describe him as a passenger against Sheffield Wednesday because he's just not there yet. That was the first time that he played the full 90 in a long time. And the reason why Norwood is in there is to be able to go in there when one of these three guys cannot play. And that's what's great about Norwood. Norwood fits in. Norwood can play any of those three positions of those midfield three. That's what makes him so valuable. If one can't play, he's in there, and he fits right away. He has a great level of passing ability, and that fits in exactly how they want to play. We also have Ibrahim Cisse that they got in that is more your defensive midfielder, so he gives them cover for, say, Kevin McDonald. So they did what they needed to do, covering the midfield three. They helped themselves up front with the two strikers, which is good. The situation they just brought in Rafa Soares, unfortunately, is injured, who's highly regarded in Portugal. So apparently he'll start training with Fulham reportedly after the international break. So he's not ready to go, but we've heard good things about him. And you mentioned Callis. Callis was key to that central defense, along with Tim Ream, who we already have. So the additions have been very good. I've been happy with the additions.
Are you stronger in terms of quality, would you say, given no Martin or Malone and the people who've come in? Do you rank yourself better than last season?
On paper, yes. But as you and I know, games aren't played on paper. So until these players really get into the way that Savisa wants to play, I'd like to think that we will be stronger. I think over a course of time, you will see a stronger team. But only time will tell if these were upgrades. I think Font will end up being an upgrade over Martin. I truly believe that. I think they needed Camera, so I think he's going to help them as well. The situation with Malone's interesting because, I've seen fans say that we've lost a great deal without Malone. Well, we'll see if Soares can fill in there, because the interesting situation with Ryan Sessegnon is that I think over the course of his career, he will transition, this is just my opinion, from a left back to playing more up front in the midfield.
I agree. I think I remember Jamie Carragher talking brilliantly about how people end up at fullback on Sky once and saying, okay, if you're a centre-half and you're not big enough, you go over to fullback. If you're a winger and you're not good enough going forward, you end up at fullback. If you're that skillful, you don't end up at fullback because you can, you're money, aren't you? Do you know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great stuff. So, given all of that stuff, playoff finished last year and we think better on paper. I was going to make a very funny joke there where I was going to say, well, the game's not played on paper, it's played on grass. Or if you were at Millwall the other day, it's not even played on grass. We were the football team in that one, crikey. So far this season, draw with our friends Norwich, beat Wickham in the League Cup, draw with playoff Reading, and there's another draw as well, wasn't there? I don't recall who that was against.
Leeds United,
thank you. My notes say 2 more draws with Reading and Fulham, and I'm like, no, Fulham didn't draw with Fulham. And then 2 defeats. Sheffield Wednesday.
Yes.
Do you know what? When I listened to your podcast on the Wednesday game, you pretty much described their exact performance against us at Portman Road. I was like, I've seen this game that you're describing, Bannon doing well and them chatting out. And then Bristol Rovers in the League Cup, although that was a reserve team. Why the slow start? Is it just that Malone and Martin were mainstays, or is it just you haven't got in the groove yet, or the new signings? Why such a poor start?
All the above, to be honest with you. The Chris Martin thing has more to do with the strikers really getting involved in the team and really getting into Slavisa's system. I think Russ, that's just a matter of time.
Sorry to cut you off, bud. Can I add there, having watched Joe Garner play a few times, one thing you'll miss from Martin is he's just a nasty bloke. And we've got Garner who winds up the centre-half, elbows, leaves his foot in, everything. We love him. And you look at this lovely, beautiful Fulham team and you don't see... you think Martin would have been good for that aggression and that gnarliness.
Oh, I agree.
Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, so it's a combination of many things. It's a combination of the situation in central midfield. Like I mentioned, that is the machine. Those 3 are the machine. And when they're not all clicking, well, Fulham aren't all clicking as a unit. So the issue is partial to deal with health because McDonald missed the opener against Norwich City. That hurt them. Tom Kearney is not 100%. That obviously really hurts them because everything is built to flow around him. So when he's not himself, Fulham are really not firing on all cylinders. And then when you add, the opponents, and listen, you have to add the opponents to this. I mean, these are 4 tough opponents. It's not a shock that we've started this. It's just disappointing because of the season we had prior. We thought that we would, be able to start strong. And I keep going back to what you said in your podcast. I think there's some truth to it, that to really mesh together, to get the passing together, I think it does take time. Even though we ended that season strong, it doesn't always just pick up where you left. And I think that's also what's going on. It's a combination of many things that has been the reason for the slow start. And yes, there are fans panicking, but if you look back and you understand what Fulham have, and I heard you guys talking about this, you hope that it doesn't happen on Saturday. At some point, it's gonna click, Ben. And when it clicks, it's gonna be really good.
Go on a run again, yeah.
Yes, we're gonna go on a run. It's just a matter. For me. It's not a matter of if. It's a matter of when. Will it happen on Saturday? I hope so, for my sake. But if it doesn't happen on Saturday, it's going to happen very soon.
Interesting. Very good. Can you mark our card then? So I'm expecting, if it's Jukanovic, it's going to be fluidy and 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1, however you want to describe it. Who do you see playing on Saturday? Who are we going to get to watch?
Okay, this is what I'll go with. I will stick with Button in goal. I'm going to go with Fredericks at right back. The center backs will be Ream and Callis. And then I'm going to go with Adoy at left back. I am going to go with the midfield 3. I'm hoping that Kearney is available, so I'm going to say that he's going to play along with McDonald and Johansson. So I'm going to go with this 4-3-3. I'm going to have Sessegnon on the left, Font in the middle, and on the right, I'm thinking about this because the situation with Aluko, I'm going to say he's going to go Bono.
Okay. Still a pretty fearsome team, actually. Even, when you... It's, to be honest, as long as those midfield 3 are there, it's a bit... Has Johansson dropped off a bit this year?
A little bit, yeah. And, and it's funny, people have mentioned that to me. One of my co-hosts said he doesn't, again, this is after the first match, didn't look like he was fully fit yet, and that could be true. He hasn't been at his best. He hasn't been horrible. He just hasn't been at his maximum potential yet. And like I said, I really think it really is about those 3 working together as a team. When one is not off to the races, the other 2 aren't either. And they all work together in unison. It really is about Kearney, ultimately, because everything goes through him. But the 3 of them need to work together, and they haven't had enough time in training to do that yet because of the injury situation with Kearney. So their timing is off. Everything is off, Ben, and that all leads to why Fulham are where they are. There are all these factors. But if I really want to pick the number 1, it's the midfield 3 not being able to play enough together and Kearney not being healthy enough yet.
Very good, very good. So how do you see it playing out on Saturday? I've got your stats from last week. It was Brentford. They play, without, and I wouldn't say this to our friends at Besotted, but Brentford are kind of like a slightly less good Fulham, aren't they? They're if Fulham are the kind of passing team, Brentford are just the rung down, aren't they? Very good side, obviously. So they made 592 passes on their way to 65.1% possession and a 2-0 defeat. How do you see it playing out on Saturday?
Okay, well, what I see on Saturday, let me just give this some thought here. Okay. I'm going to go with the idea that this is the weekend, my friend, and that everything clicks. Kearney's been resting this week. Like I said, I was just checking out the presser from Savicio Jokanovic. He did not mention anything about Kearney, which to me is a positive sign. It doesn't mean that he's going to play, but I'm hoping that he's going to play and that he's doing better than he did against Sheffield Wednesday. If the three of them are doing what they potentially can do and we control the game, I think Fulham are going to win this 2-1. I'll go with 2-1.
Great stuff. And I suppose if it's Ream and Callas, they should be able to cope with the kind of high intense up and at them. We've been playing 4 forwards, so
yep.
Ream particularly is kind of big, powerful guy, and Callas is a bit more classy, isn't he?
It's actually it's kind of the other way around.
Oh, really? Okay.
Ream is the thinker. Ream is more of the ball at his feet kind of center back. He reads the game very well, and Callas is the one that actually does most of the dirty work, I guess you could say.
Which one's more likely to get wound up by Garner and get himself sent off? we need to focus on that one, yeah.
Honestly, probably Callas.
Right. Oh, he had a red card, didn't he?
He did. That's why. Yeah. That's why I'm going to go with Callas.
That was more a question of not being awake at the start of the game rather than being wound up, though, wasn't it? Yeah.
Exactly.
Great stuff, Russ. Expectations for the season, then. So I've got 3 stats from last season: 6th position, 80 points, and 85 goals. Are you going to beat any of those 3 numbers?
I think we're going to beat our point total because I think the goals are going to come. What's encouraging so far, Ben, is that in these 4 games, if you look at the total of goals that we've given up, that's gone down. So if the defense is improved from last season, I think our point total is going to go up. And people think I'm crazy for saying this. I predicted this at the beginning of the season, so I'm going to go with it until I can't go with it any further. I predicted automatic promotion for Fulham, and I'm not backing down on that because there's a long way to go. It doesn't look good right now. And I think once we hit our stride, we're going to just get a huge amount of consecutive victories here. It's just a matter, like I said, for me, it really is a matter of when, not if. And it's going to happen. I predicted Sheffield Wednesday to win the league and us to come in second. We'll see if I am crazy. People think I'm crazy now, so we'll see.
Excellent. And what we've been doing when I've been doing these interviews with other podcasts is we've been collecting your favourite players to try and make up an opposition team. So we have one from Birmingham, one from Barnsley, and one from Brentford. So it doesn't have to. It can be a cult hero. It can be a weird one. Just your favourite Fulham player since you've been supporting.
Mine's easy. I call him Mr. Fulham. It might surprise some, but it's Danny Murphy.
Danny Murphy. Let me add him to. He's going to go in midfield with Brentford's Terry Hurlock, who's going to kick everyone up in the air, and Murphy's going to do all the passing. In he goes. Lovely stuff. Russ, great stuff. Can you just do me a favour, please? Because your catchphrase, I think you may not know it, is very good, my friend. Can you just give me a very good, my friend?
Oh, boy, I get called out on that all the time.
Oh, no, I love it.
Very good, my friend.
Thank you. Where can we find you on Twitter, and give us one more plug for the podcast?
Sure. You can find me on Twitter, Russ_Goldman. You can also find the show on Twitter at Cottage Talk altogether. You can listen to the show on blogtalkradio.com/Cottage Talk, on Apple Podcast, on the TuneIn app, on cottagersconfidential.sbnation. It's posted there as well.
And I must just give a kind of endorsement to the show. I listen to a lot of these podcasts in research, and some of them are a bit more biased. You guys are pretty balanced, aren't you? Particularly after the Sheffield Wednesday pod,
I think so.
They were the better team, so you're not going to get biased. So I would encourage, after this weekend, Ipswich fans to tune in and get the Fulham view on that one. And can we get you back in January, Russ? After, I think it's January the 2nd, the next one, isn't it?
Absolutely, Ben. And I'm glad that you said that, because this podcast, we try to be as balanced as we possibly can. We're fans. We want them to win. I'm a glass half full supporter, and I have other supporters that do the show with me that are glass half empty. So it actually works out pretty good. But But what's interesting that regardless, I am brutally honest and they're brutally honest. If we're good, we're going to say they're good. If they're terrible, you're going to hear it. And if there's a player that's not playing well, like I mentioned Sonia Aluko on the last show, I'm going to point that out. Even though I don't want to, I have to be honest. He did not play well in the last match, and I'm going to call it the way I see it. And that's what we kind of do on Cottage Talk.
Very good, my friend. I think we can have a bit of fun with this, Russ. At the moment, Ipswich is second, Fulham are 19th. You can see where I'm going with this. January the 2nd, are you telling me that that's going to swap places? Although the thing I'm finding with Ipswich now is the teams at the bottom of the Championship are generally utterly terrible. And this 4 wins that Ipswich have got, probably they're probably going to be safe from relegation on the basis that these teams at the bottom are normally so awful on points per game. But January the 2nd, there's not going to be 17 places between the two teams, is there? No, there won't. You know, my hope is that by that period of time, Fulham are in playoff contention, and then we can see where we are after that. That's just
what
a few
I
spots
think.
Below Ipswich, yeah?
Yeah. Well, listen, Ben, I am very happy for you because I remember talking to you last season and how bad it was, and all you were talking about was Mick McCarthy. Would he survive? Look at Mick now.
Amazing.
I mean, it's funny. It's funny to see how quickly it turns, right? But I have no bad feelings towards Ipswich Town. I like you. I love your show. You have a wonderful podcast, and I do wish you the best. And we'll see who wins on Saturday. But I don't think that you guys are going to be any relegation issue. I don't think Fulham are either. I think that if we look at January, it's a great start. If you could keep it going, who's to say that you wouldn't be 8th to 10th? And that would be good.
Oh, look, we wanted 1.4 to 1.5 points per game, and between 12th and 9th would have been, after 16th last year. So we'll see how it goes. The one thing I've learned is that what's quite nice for Ipswich fans that they probably don't realise is that 16 years in the Championship has actually taught you to be able to lose with dignity. We hear a lot of sour grapes from other teams' fans, and I think we're quite a good bunch with losing with dignity and trying to be balanced after so long. Right, Russ, I'm going to do the sign off and then I'm going to give you the last word. So obviously you're listening to the Blue Monday podcast on the Acast app and on actually you schooled me there, Russ, earlier. I should call it Apple Podcasts, not iTunes, shouldn't I? And you can get 3 shows per week now, so all down the same feed. This is obviously the newest one, the preview show, and we'll be back on Monday with the flagship show. You can buy a T-shirt if you just look at the top on our Twitter. There's a nice link in there. Follow me on Twitter at Benjamin Bloom. Dave is at DavidDiamond3, and Statman is at Chompex3. We're on the Facebook. Yeah. And please check out my YouTube series, BlueTube. Just type Benjamin Bloom in. Follow me there. Russ, thank you very much for interrupting your vacation. Good luck to Fulham this year. We don't want you to get promoted because we just like going to the away game. Although it's not going to be very sunny on. I remember taking photos at the last away game, and it was like, God, this is a very nice location to play football, isn't it? Good luck with everything, and let's have the last word from you.
Well, I wish you and the Ipswich Town fans the best of luck on Saturday, and may the best club win. And hopefully it's a good match. It's a match of contrasting styles, so that makes things interesting. And we'll see who wins.
Thank you, Russ. Bye, everybody, and hopefully we'll see Russ back in January. Say bye, Russ.
Thanks a lot, Ben.